Jax. Hayes wiped the thin layer of grease from his forearm and straightened up, the movement sending a familiar ache through his lower back. The smell of high-octane fuel, hot asphalt, and old engine oil was the scent of home, a perfume worn by the Golden Pump for over 60 years. It was more than a gas station. It was the last stubborn outcrop of original local business in a sea of newly developed, master-planned suburbia, a suburbia lorded over by the Stonehaven Homeowners Association. The bell over the office door dinged with a false cheerfulness that felt jarringly out of place. Jax turned, expecting a regular, maybe old Mr. Henderson topping off his classic Ford, but instead his blood immediately chilled. Standing silhouetted in the doorway was Cassandra Vance. She wasn't just HOA president. She was the architect of the surrounding, sanitized community. Every beige stucco wall, every perfectly symmetrical street tree, every draconian regulation flowed from her manicured fingertips and cold, calculating gaze. Today, she looked particularly lethal, dressed in a crisp, white linen suit that seemed to repel dirt and emotion with equal efficiency. Beside her, hovering with the nervous energy of a small mammal, was her subordinate, Richard, clutching a leather-bound clipboard like a shield. "Mr. Hayes," Cassandra's voice was a flat, educated monotone that never once elevated to a friendly volume. "I trust you received the preliminary warnings regarding the deplorable state of your property." Jax tossed the greasy rag onto the counter. "Ms. Vance, I received the 24 passive-aggressive emails about the misaligned curb appeal and the substandard visual aesthetic, which is HOA speak for my gas station doesn't match your pastel McMansions. I've also had my lawyer send you 3 letters stating, clearly, that my deed predates your association's formation by 20 years, and therefore your covenants have 0 jurisdiction over my commercial land." He leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. The movement was deliberately slow, designed to project weary confidence. Cassandra didn't flinch. She placed a heavy linen fiber envelope on the counter. The paper wasn't just thick, it felt expensive and final. "That, Mr. Hayes, was the Neighborhood Committee's appeal. This," she tapped the envelope with a crimson-tipped fingernail, "is the City Planning Commission's ruling. Stonehaven, through a careful, costly, and entirely legitimate process, has successfully petitioned to have your plot rezoned for mixed-use community beautification. Specifically, a charming little plaza with an artisan coffee shop and a designated community gathering spot, a water fountain, perhaps." Jax felt a sickening lurch in his stomach. He didn't need to open the envelope. He knew the HOA had spent months working the back channels, leveraging their influence and wealth to grease the wheels of local government. This wasn't a petty squabble over paint color. This was a hostile corporate takeover, dressed up in the language of civic duty. "You bought the city council," Jax stated flatly, his voice low and dangerous. "We simply demonstrated that your business represents a safety hazard and an environmental risk to the dense residential zone surrounding it," Cassandra corrected, a thin, triumphant smile curving her lips. "The commission agreed. You have 30 days to cease all operations and begin remediation for the underground storage tanks. Failure to comply will result in municipal fines and legal seizure." Richard shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable, but Cassandra held her ground, savoring the moment. Jax picked up the envelope. It was cold in his hand. He looked past Cassandra out the window at the 2 pumps that had fed 3 generations of his family. He saw the faded, hand-painted sign that his grandfather had put up in 1958. 30 days. It was a death sentence. "You talk about safety hazards," Jax said, his eyes narrowed, his gaze locking onto hers. "You want to know what the real hazard is, Cassandra? It's people like you, people who come in, bulldoze history, and call it beautification. People who forget that an actual community is built on more than pristine lawns and identical roof tiles." Cassandra sighed, a sound of supreme boredom. "Sentimental diatribes are not a valid defense in a court of law, Mr. Hayes. Do you plan to fight this, or will you accept the generous, pre-approved offer we have authorized for your land?" Jax looked at her, then down at the notice, and finally his gaze settled on the Golden Pump sign, a simple image of a golden nozzle feeding a stylized flame. He ripped the notice in half, the sound a sharp, visceral RIIIP in the sterile silence of the office. "You want to rezone my land?" Jax threw the torn pieces back onto the counter. "Fine, you've just declared war." He walked out from behind the counter, forcing Cassandra and Richard to step back. He didn't break eye contact. "You've got your 30 days. And you can tell the Planning Commission and the entire Stonehaven board that I'll fight you for every last gallon of gas, every square inch of asphalt, and every memory this place holds. I'm not leaving until I'm carried out. And I guarantee you're going to regret the day you decided to get gas from the Golden Pump. The threat, laced with a strange, dark promise, hung heavy in the air. Cassandra's perfect composure finally cracked, a flicker of genuine annoyance crossing her face. Richard gulped audibly. The beat, Jack's ripping the legal notice, was the line in the sand. He's choosing a scorched earth, no-retreat fight against overwhelming financial and political power, transforming a business dispute into a personal war for his family's legacy. The last line is a strong, unresolved threat that suggests Jax has a plan, or at least a dark resolve, that Cassandra severely underestimates. Would you like me to continue the story with a part 2 focusing on Jax's desperate counter-strategy and Cassandra's escalating HOA retaliation? That sounds great. Continuing the cinematic story, here is part 2, focusing on Jax's desperate counter-strategy and Cassandra's immediate, aggressive HOA retaliation. Part 2, the Battle of the Bylaws and the Viral Video Mobile Collision. Jackson, fueled by the adrenaline of defiance, didn't sleep that night. He spent the hours hunched over a stack of yellowed land deeds, zoning maps that smelled of dry rot, and a dense, nearly unreadable binder of the Stonehaven HOA covenants, conditions and restrictions, CC and RS, that dated back to 2008. If the City Planning Commission had been bought off, and Jax was certain they had, his only chance lay in finding a fatal flaw in the foundation of the very organization trying to destroy him. His counter-strategy wasn't legal. It was guerrilla warfare. The immediate retaliation from Cassandra Vance was swift and surgical. At 7:00 a.m., just as the sun crested the rooftops of Stonehaven, a massive, shiny black truck pulled up to the curb adjoining the Golden Pump's property line. Two men in neon yellow vests, overseen by a smirking Richard, Cassandra's clipboard-clutching subordinate, began erecting a 10-foot-tall, opaque fence made of industrial-grade corrugated steel. Jax burst out of the office, his eyes blazing. "What the hell are you doing?" Richard held up a laminated sheet. "Permit, Mr. Hayes. The Stonehaven HOA has leased the adjacent 3 feet of city easement, perfectly legal as it's not your land. And we are erecting a temporary visual screening barrier to shield the residential community from the, and I quote, unmitigated industrial blight during the required 30-day remediation period." The barrier, a calculated act of malice, immediately cut off the clear line of sight to the Golden Pump's entrance from the main thoroughfare. For a gas station, where visibility was everything, this was effectively a commercial chokehold. "You're bankrupting me before the 30 days are up," Jax roared, but the sound of the electric drill mounting the final section drowned him out. His first loyal customer of the day, a middle-aged teacher named Sarah, pulled up, saw the fence, hesitated, and ultimately drove past, unable to easily navigate the visually confusing detour. Jax watched his lifeblood, his customer base, being choked off. Desperation sharpened Jax's focus. Back inside, he ran his finger over a section of the HOA CC and RS. Article IX, Section 3, Subsection B, Common Area Infrastructure. It dealt with the required maintenance of Stonehaven's extensive private roadway network, specifically detailing the obligation to maintain all necessary street markings, lighting, and ingress-egress safety zones for the benefit of all surrounding properties, whether residential or commercial. He looked up at the old, cracked asphalt of the 4-lane road leading into Stonehaven, a road the HOA had fought tooth and nail to privatize and now controlled. He thought about the enormous, deep pothole exactly 30 feet past his station entrance, a pothole that jarred every vehicle and that the HOA had consistently ignored because it wasn't directly in front of a resident's pristine driveway. Jax slammed the binder shut. He had his counterattack. He called his most trusted mechanic, Lou, a grizzled man who saw Jax as the son he never had. "Lou, I need a camera crew, a dozen traffic cones, and the biggest, brightest yellow warning signs you can find. Meet me at the Stonehaven entrance in an hour. We're going to give the HOA a very public infrastructure warning." Within 90 minutes, Jax and Lou had transformed the neglected pothole into a hazard spectacle. They spray-painted bright orange circles around it, erected flashing caution signs, and set up a tripod. Jax, holding his phone, began to film. Jax into the camera, voice steady and earnest. "Welcome to Stonehaven. I'm Jax Hayes, owner of the Golden Pump located just ahead. The HOA wants you to believe I'm an eyesore, but I want to talk about safety. See this massive neglected sinkhole? This is Stonehaven's private road, managed by President Cassandra Vance. Article IX of her own CC and RS requires maintaining safe ingress-egress for all surrounding properties. Not only is this a serious, dangerous hazard for residents, but the HOA is actively allowing it to damage the suspension and tires of every commuter who relies on this road. They have the funds. They just prioritize expensive fences over basic safety." He zoomed in on the jarringly deep pothole, then panned to the industrial fence blocking his business. Jax, with a sardonic chuckle, "So if you get a flat tire today or need a costly alignment, please know that the Golden Pump is still open if you can find us, and we'd be happy to fix your car. But the true culprit, it's not a small business. It's the HOA's gross negligence." He posted the video to a newly created social media account, HOA Hazards Stonehaven. The video, leveraging the universal hatred for overzealous HOAs and juxtaposing a small business owner against a soulless corporation, went viral within hours. Local news picked it up by the evening. The local paper ran a headline, "Pothole Wars, Gas Station Owner Fights HOA with Viral Video." The negative publicity was Cassandra Vance's kryptonite. Her carefully crafted image of civic perfection was crumbling into a digital sinkhole. That evening, Jax was mopping the office when his phone rang. The caller ID showed a blocked number, but Jax knew. "Mr. Hayes," Cassandra's voice was strained, the usual icy calm replaced by a palpable, barely controlled fury. "The fence will remain, but this absurd, defamatory stunt with the pothole is over. You have until midnight to take down that video and the associated social media campaign." "Or what, Cassandra?" Jax wiped the sweat from his brow. He finally felt like he had a sliver of leverage. "Or I call the city's environmental regulator, the same one who approved the rezoning, and have them perform an immediate unscheduled inspection of your underground storage tanks. I will find a leak. I will find a violation, and I will have your business condemned and red-tagged tomorrow morning." Her voice was a low, chilling promise. "You've wasted your 30 days, Jax. Now you have 24 hours. Jax hung up, his heart pounding. She wasn't bluffing. An environmental inspection, a hostile one, was the ultimate execution order. He had pushed too hard, too fast. Now the fight had escalated from property lines and zoning to a desperate, last-ditch race against a ticking clock and an existential threat. The Beat, Jax's viral counterattack, achieved a brief victory, exposing the HOA's hypocrisy and negligence. However, this success triggered Cassandra's most powerful, illegal, and potentially fatal countermove: the threat of an immediate, weaponized environmental inspection, creating an intense, immediate deadline that Jax must somehow overcome. The 24-hour deadline was a vice gripping Jax's chest. Cassandra wasn't bluffing. An immediate, hostile environmental inspection meant an agent, already predisposed to the HOA's narrative, would pore over his underground storage tanks, USDs, searching for the slightest violation. He knew his tanks were old. They were single-walled steel, not the double-walled fiberglass required for modern installations. The station operated on a grandfathered clause, contingent on impeccable maintenance and rigorous leak testing. If a leak, even a microscopic one, were discovered, the Golden Pump would be condemned instantly. Jax was alone in the office, staring at a schematic of the 4 USDs buried beneath the asphalt. His phone rang. It was Marcus, Mac, Avery, his childhood friend who had managed to escape the town and now worked as an environmental regulator for the state, ironically in the same agency Cassandra was threatening to use. "Jax, it's Mac. I just got a heads up." Mac's voice was tense, low. "The Planning Commission head, let's call him Mr. X, just requested an expedited high-priority USD inspection for your site. The reason cited is unspecified public risk due to documented operational negligence." "Cassandra," Jax muttered, running a hand through his hair. "She's trying to red-tag me by tomorrow morning." "She will succeed," Mac confirmed grimly. "Jax, I can't stop the inspection, but I can tell you this: the agent scheduled is a straight shooter but highly technical. If there's any sign of contamination or tank fatigue, he has to issue a cease and desist. Your systems are ancient, man. The integrity test sensors, they're probably decades past reliable." "So I'm dead in the water?" "Not necessarily. Mac said, a hesitation in his voice. Look, I can't officially touch this, but there's an old trick. The sensor's read product loss versus delivery volume. If a tank is kept completely full and the systems are briefly overridden, the leak detection failsafe can't register a change for a short time. It's risky, illegal, and only buys you a few days to get a court order, but it might just get you past an initial inspection. Jax knew what Mac was suggesting, tampering with the leak detection system. It was career-ending for Mac and potentially criminal for Jax. But the alternative was losing his family legacy in the next 12 hours. Mac, Jax said, his voice husky with desperation, I need a favor. I need you to send me the override codes for the old Sentinel 4000 monitor unit, and I need you to confirm the inspection time. Silence stretched across the line. Jax, if I do this and you get caught, I'm ruined. If I don't, I'm ruined. And I can promise you, Mac, I'll take the heat. I need a couple of days to get a real lawyer involved, not the local schmo I've been using. Just buy me the time. Mac eventually relented, the sound of a deep, regretful sigh traveling across the connection. The inspection is scheduled for 9:00 a.m. tomorrow. The codes are in your secure email. Don't call me again. The final hours were a blur of intense, nerve-wracking work. Jax drove his tanker truck to the nearest refinery and topped off all 4 tanks, a massive investment of capital, until they were brimming. Then, hunched beneath the counter, his hands shaking, he located the dusty, archaic Sentinel 4000 monitoring unit. He input the sequence Mac had provided: override, bypass, system diagnostics, standby. The small green light on the console, the light that confirmed tank integrity, began to glow with a suspiciously steady brilliance. He had bought himself maybe 48 hours of false security. He finished his work and stepped outside just after 10:00 p.m. The station was dark, silent, except for the oppressive presence of the tall, ugly corrugated fence that shielded the station from the main road. He leaned against a pump, exhausted and hollow. He had just crossed a moral and legal line. Suddenly, a massive, gleaming white Mercedes G-Wagon, recognizable immediately as Cassandra Vance's vehicle, pulled around the corner. She must have been doing a final patrol, reveling in her imminent victory, wanting to ensure the site was desolate before the morning's final blow. Cassandra stopped her SUV directly adjacent to the 10-foot steel fence, the driver's side facing the station's dark pumps. She slowly rolled down her tinted window. Just confirming my victory lap, Mr. Hayes, she called out, her voice dripping with satisfaction. I trust your social media campaign is feeling a little hollow right about now. Enjoy the cool air. It's your last night here. She put the car in drive, about to pull away, when a harsh, metallic grind erupted from beneath the hood. The SUV lurched violently, then stalled, its powerful engine giving a pathetic whimper. Cassandra's jaw dropped. She tried the ignition again. The engine cranked, coughed a plume of thin, dark smoke, and went dead. A small pool of dark, viscous liquid began to spread beneath the front axle. Jax, watching from the dark, felt a slow, dark wave of realization wash over him. Karma, it seemed, didn't wait for a viral video. It preferred immediate mechanical delivery. Cassandra threw the door open, exiting the expensive vehicle in a flash of white linen and righteous indignation. She didn't look at Jax. She only looked at her stalled car. Richard, she screamed into her phone. My car, it's dead. Get a tow truck here immediately. I need to be ready for the morning. She then looked up, finally spotting Jax, a dark silhouette leaning against the forbidden pump. She forced a venomous smile. I suppose you think this is funny, Hayes. A minor inconvenience. My driver probably put in that cheap fuel of yours. Jax walked slowly toward her, his face unreadable in the dark. He stopped just beyond the dark puddle on the asphalt. Cassandra, he said, his voice flat. Your car just broke down, right here. And since my deed gives me ownership of everything above and below the surface of this land, I'm afraid your expensive vehicle is now technically trespassing. The beat. Jax has risked everything by tampering with the leak detection system under Mac's direction, creating a high-stakes ticking clock for the 9:00 a.m. inspection. Cassandra arrives for her final triumphant patrol, only to have her own vehicle suffer a dramatic mechanical failure right on the perimeter of the very gas station she is trying to destroy, setting up the ultimate personal irony of the